Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The French are gradually losing their grip on Africa's states, and partly linked to perceptions that France has not done enough to tackle the Islamist militancy that has spread in recent years from Mali and the poor results in the fight against terrorism despite the presence of Sabres on Burkinabe territory, Sabres being asked to leave. The French hegemony in Africa has not been exactly to better the people's life, but more about continued exploitation. Having a military in a country, yet it does no good against insurgencies. While other African countries make sure to be progressive in any hegemony, La République du Cameroon is still tied to the French, who usurps 50% of its resources and is not concerned with the state of its security or any development in the country. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at the international scene as concerns these and more national stories as concerns Ambazonia. Well, with this, we'll get the prime headlines.
Right, these are the prime headlines for today. Today we'll start with the story of a 15-year-old Ambazonian who died after consuming some certain herbs. Also today, trade union condemned the murder of Martini Zogo. A lot of Martini Zogo's story will come up tonight. Also later from Dame Zogo, wife of Martini Zogo, also calling on all that murdered her husband in the Cameroons to come to support her. Also today, firepower pushed down chill in Bamenda local government area. Lawyers are bent on seeing the hammer of the law fall on Chief Ewume Eko, who is also known as Moja Moja. Now, this is an interesting story that you wouldn't want to miss. And on the foreign scene, we're going to be going back to the Biden story as he claims no regret, but classified papers case could come back to bite him. Today, most interestingly, we have a story on Chris Andrews. I'm definitely sure you can't wait to hear that. All right, let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amber News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Amazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Amazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Amazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Amazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, 1992, Amazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Amazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Amazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambertv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Amazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Amazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
The ravaging consequences of the ongoing war in southern Cameroon are on a surge as days go by. The plight of those who have fled the violence to La République du Cameroun is a call for concern. The exploitative tendencies of senior La République du Cameroun officials against these Amazonians, those displaced persons, should be condemned with all strength. Now, the senior La République du Cameroun government officials, because of their proximity to power and their wealth, think they can do and undo without being scratched by their victims or family of their victims. While Amazonians in La République du Cameroun towns are victims of sexual exploitation of all sorts, both the boys and the girls alike are being raped on a regular basis. Now, it is a sad report, but we must report these untold stories. Now, this is where we'll begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Oni Okbala. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Oni. Good evening, fellow Amazonians. And back to the report, a young girl who, before her demise, had great dreams, is the newest on the sexual exploitation list. Just 15 years old, a senior La République du Cameroun functionary gave her concoctions to take after impregnating her via rape, and the mixture only helped in killing her. This is one to many cases. Is this the type of pleasure that the colonial La République du Cameroun senior functionaries are enjoying, that they don't want the conflict to end?
Well, this is a sad story. A young girl, 15 years, by the name of Berenice Chantal's early death has left family members and many bewildered. She died in an attempt to commit abortion in Yaoundé, the political capital of La République du Cameroon. Well, a senior civil servant of the La République du Cameroon government used his flashy wallet to lure Chantal closer. Well, the moment he succeeded to have Chantal in his den, he never hesitated to force his way through her.
Well, on her dying bed, Shanta confessed that after discovering that she was pregnant from that day's act, she went back to her rapist. The man concocted some herbs for her to be consuming after assuring her that they will flush the unwanted baby. It is after consuming the mixture for a week that Shanta fell ill and was rushed to the hospital. It is at the hospital that it was discovered that the substance she had been taking had destroyed some vital organs in her body, and despite all medical attention and intervention, she passed away. The family and sympathizers are not willing just to be shock absorbers. They have decided to press charges against the author of the pregnancy, the rapist, and at the same time, the herbalist he brought to book for him to answer and pay for his crimes. The family opines that Baron Yu was still a minor. For that reason, it can be said she was in any love relationship with this man. On her dying bed, she disclosed to us, says the lawyer, that this man forced and raped her.
Bearing you, Chantal is an orphan with no mother or father because of the conflict in southern Cameroon. Her uncle resided in Yaoundé decided to take her over to continue schooling. At press time, the name of the civil servant of the La République du Cameroon rapist and murderer is still the secret of late Bearing you's family. But we have a story here, courtesy of Equinox TV. Let's get it.
Zogan interne et tout ça, et c'est comme ça que l'enfant a rendu là. À cause de crise anglophone, son oncle qui est ici à Yaoundé l'a pris. Et donc, elle vivait avec son oncle. Donc, elle n'a pas de papa, elle n'a pas de maman.
C'est une violation flagrante de la Convention de Kampala sur la protection et l'assistance aux personnes déplacées. L'article 9 invite en effet les États à protéger les droits de ces personnes en prévenant des actes tels que la violence sexuelle est fondée sur le genre, notamment le viol, la prostitution forcée ou encore l'exploitation sexuelle. Le protocole de Maputo consacre quant à lui le droit à l'intégrité physique, notamment l'article 4, selon lequel toute femme a droit au respect de sa vie, de son intégrité physique et à la sécurité de sa personne.
Non au viol des jeunes filles. Non aux relations sexuelles avec des mineurs, non au père de sortir avec les petites filles. Parce que l'enfant, ça pouvait être la petite fille de cet monsieur. Mais elle n'a pas pris conscience de tout ce qui devait se passer. Elle a seulement trompé l'enfant et voilà, l'enfant s'est retrouvé là où elle est aujourd'hui.
En mettant sur la place publique ce cas, qui n'est pas isolé, la famille éplorée, ainsi que les avocats et certaines organisations des droits de l'homme, voudraient non seulement que justice soit rendue, mais également que cela serve de leçon à une certaine jeunesse attirée par le gain facile et de mise en garde aux prédateurs sexuels qui courent derrière les mineurs et les personnes vulnérables.
Pas pour faire pour que Chantal revienne parce qu'elle ne va plus avoir Chantal. Pour dire qu'on est fatigué, on ne va plus avoir plusieurs Chantal qui vont transmettre ce cas. Pour que les gens sachent, et surtout les parents, ils prennent les enfants à la main. C'est Chantal aujourd'hui, ça peut être pour l'autre demain.
On fait ça aujourd'hui pour que ça soit comme pour déterrer les autres petites filles, pour faire attention aux gens qui sont dehors. L'argent n'est pas tout. Ils doivent prendre au sérieux leurs études et laisser ça d'abord. Après un certain âge, quand ils seront les majeurs, ils vont prendre les décisions conscientes maintenant et ils peuvent vivre leur vie.
Les avocats de la famille ont déposé une plainte à la police judiciaire avec l'espoir que le statut de gros poisson dont joue le bourreau de la jeune fille ne fera pas obstruction à la manifestation de la vérité.
Les filles qu'on envoie à l'école sont plus en danger contre la viol. Et ce qui est mauvais, c'est que ce sont les responsables qui font cet acte. Et ça fait mal de plus. Après cet acte, tu n'as rien à foutre parce qu'on dit que c'est le haut cadre, blablabla. Et c'est ça qui nous fait mal.
Décédée il y a 2 semaines, Chantal était scolarisée dans un établissement de la capitale.
All right, now on to the next report for tonight. For a week now, we have constantly brought to you updates on the murder of Martinez Zogo. His wife has requested the corrupt genocide of barbaric, bloodthirsty La Republic du Cameroon's government to bring perpetrators and sponsors of the heinous assassination of the father of her children to book to try and sentence them in accordance with the law.
All right, now in her letter, it reads, one, Martinez Zogo was brutally murdered. There is no longer any doubt about this. So allow me to seize this opportunity that you offer me to challenge and summarily entreat all the high moral authorities of the world. Now here, she says, I want to personally challenge, amongst others, she tagged, or should we say she copied, a whole lot of world personalities and world leaders. She tagged Pope Francis, the Grand Imam of Cameroon, Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, the President of the African Union Commission, Mr. Moussa Fakai Mohamed, the Presidents, Paul Biya, Joe Biden, Xi Jinping, Emmanuel Macron, Mark Sall, and all the other heads of state, British and Canadian Prime Ministers, Messrs. Rishi Sunak and Justin Trudeau, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, all living Nobel Prize winners, all defenders of human rights, all associations of journalists, all lovers of peace and justice, citizens of the world, and all those who still believe that humanity is sacred and passes through the respect of the rights to life of the other. Now she says, I send you this cry of despair as one throws a bottle into the sea on board a boat in distress to implore you.
Now, one, she says, to demand from the Cameroonian government the unfailing protection of the children and family of Martinez Zogo, who today are afraid of the danger that continues to await them and of the uncertainties of tomorrow. She says, two, to demand from the Cameroonian government that the perpetrators and sponsors of the heinous assassination of the father of her children be quickly arrested, tried, and sentenced in accordance with the law. Well, for more credibility and seriousness, that a national and international commission of inquiry under the aegis of the UN be constituted so that an indisputable truth can be established. She also goes on to talk about the third point, that demand a rapid and unequivocal follow-up of the investigations which are at the origin of the barbaric and inhumane execution of her companion, otherwise it would amount to a second summary state execution. And the fourth, that above all, following the appropriate investigations in memory of Martinez Zogo, all the predators of the Cameroonian public fortune be tracked down and brought before the national and international criminal courts, indexed in the documents judicial authorities before his vile assassination. The fifth point, that the ill-gotten goods of these predators, wherever they are in the world, be forever traced, identified, seized, and returned in memory of Zogo Martinez to the Cameroonian people. That will be fair justice, she says.
Now, the sixth, she says that the state of Cameroon recognizes the late Martinez Zogo as meter of the republic, exalting his courage and his patriotism for the common good. 7, she says, I will end these SOS by calling on all the men and women of the world who love peace, justice, and freedom to allow themselves to defend the memory of the father of my children as that of a good father who was cowardly and savagely murdered because he defended a just and noble cause in the interest of each and everyone, that is to say, the protection of the general interest. Now, so do not hesitate to participate peacefully in any public or private action or demonstration that will be held anywhere in the world in memory of Martin Zogo. She ends it by saying, may God protect Cameroon, all his children, and all his friends. May God bless you all his creatures. This is signed by Dane Zogo, wife of Martin Zogo.
All right, that's about it. But then moving on with still the Martinez Zogo story, the trade union has condemned the murder of Martinez Zogo. The Confederation of Autonomous Trade Unions of Cameroon, CSAC, has learned with emotion the appalling assassination of journalist Martinez Zogo, whose dead body was found in a suburb of Yaoundé. The CSAC strongly condemns this despicable and heinous crimes which tarnishes the image and dishonors the country Cameroon.
By this macabre act, the perpetrators of the crime ostensibly violates the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which states that everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. These assassinations constitute a serious attack on the dignity and freedom of human rights. Martin Zogo was killed for doing his job. Faced with this ignominy, the CSAC takes offense and challenge responsibility of the government of the Republic to set up a commission of inquiry to elucidate the causes and circumstances of the journalist's murder. Demands the immediate opening of a judicial inquiry to establish the responsibilities and punish perpetrators of such cruel, inhuman treatment, as well as its or his murderers.
Now, requests that in future a framework and an effective mechanism for the protection of press workers in general and the media in particular be put in place. Call for sanctions against the culprits and sponsors of the crime provided for by the laws and regulations of the country. Addresses to the nuclear family of Martinez Zogo. Their condolences were sent and present to the entire press and media family. Their wishes of courage in the accomplishment of their noble missions.
All right, we have more revelations from a special unit commando, and it's still about the death of Martin Zogo. Cameroon is appalled by the images that are born on the social media relating to the death of the station's manager of Radio Amplitude FM broadcasting in Yaoundé. Now, the information is certainly not yet made official, but mastering the modus operandi of this kind of file with which, I had in the past been associated with, as much to say bluntly that the assassination of this young Cameroonian journalist is indeed the work of the octopus and not that of the man of Jean-Pierre Amougou Bilanga, as they want public opinion to believe.
Now, the octopus is a code name given to the person who manages the anti-chamber of power at the Unity Palace in Yaoundé. We are aware of everything that is going on because we have only done intelligence for at least 22 years of service at a very high level. Each military corps has a cleansing squad or plan eliminations that we make up as natural deaths if we want, it says. Now, the goal is to serve public opinion with what the client wants to believe. In the case of the death of Martin Zogo, the principle is the same. Kill it and blame it on someone else. And in this case, Amougou Belinga is the one who was sold to the public as the murderer or sponsor of the death of Zogo. The work was done by professionals. Now, this claim here goes on to say, we know how to recognize professional work from that of small killers recruited into groups of bandits.
Well, do not forget that this is still revelations from a special unit commando. Now, he goes on to say the operating mode is a military mode taught in the training centers. Everything was respected, from the kidnapping to the torture and the killing. The man was obviously tortured to death for several days in a room and his body transported and thrown where it was to be discovered. They wanted his body to be found to send a message. If not, they could have made it disappear. The abuse of his body and other severed fingers are the works of professionals. A private individual would have recruited a bandit to kill him in front of his door or put a woman in his way to poison him. Now, these methods are known.
Now, indeed, we know that this plan has been drawn up for a few years and can't keep quiet about it anymore because they are fed up and he is not the right one for Cameroon. The final objective of this plan is to take over the presidency of the Republic by all means, but first, they have to get rid of some people around the commander-in-chief and mainly Amougou Belinga, who puts his nose everywhere. Now, his physical elimination can create an uncontrollable situation in public opinion. His passing would never go unnoticed. Now, the information says that a less brutal but more incisive elimination strategy has been devised, which would constitute a slow agony for him.
Now, the hopes of Marxist psychology have taught us that to kill a politician or public figure, you have to put dead people in your closets. Martin Izogo was never an essential link in this plan, but just a pawn in this war game. Several years back, he was one of the fervent defenders of Jean-Pierre Amugo Bellinger in small struggles. He likes Jacques Blaise Mvei, boss of the newspaper La Nouvelle, or Dieudonné Mveng of the Info TV channel. All were particularly inseparable and were motivated from time to time by their mentor. The octopus knew it and was waiting for, the right time to play its card.
Now, the octopus is very formidable. Everyone knows it. It has control over the gendarmerie, the police, and the beer. All elite commando units are under his command. The octopus alone controls 87% of ministries in public and para-public companies. He is the one who appoints whoever he wants and to the position he wants. He controls almost the whole country and is patiently waiting to take full control. It's only a matter of months now. They have taken the president of the republic hostage. To finish with the businessman Amugo Belinga, the octopus did not have much control because it was easy for him to turn his former allies against him. To do this, a large sum of money and guarantees to see the failure of any possible legal proceedings for defamation against him were given. In the same deal, the promised security to the host.
Now, still according to the Special Units Commander, he says this is how Martin Izogo and Jacques Blaise Mvei agreed to betray their friend from yesterday and go to work. For more than 6 months, journalists never stopped firing red bullets at Amugo Bellinger on his radio. Several real or fabricated documents were regularly given to him in a home in the Bastos district in Yaoundé. Now, there was no way Martinez could take it out on the businessman if he didn't have a guarantee. Same with Jacques Blaise Mvei. Now, they know that their friend from yesterday has a long arm. Martinez was used without his knowledge. The method of the octopus was to take the public to witness these cases of lynching on Amugo Bellinger by the host before killing him.
Now, the octopus, through its tentacles, even asked him to file a complaint against Amugo Bellinger for embezzlement of public funds about some contracts won at the presidency of the Republic in lines 94 and 95. Everything was well orchestrated and large envelopes given to Mvei, who was responsible in turn for redistribution to media bosses to amplify the cabal. Martinez thought he was in the circle, yet he was just an instrument. He never imagined that he was going to be killed to serve the interest of the people who only used him. They even made him say on the antennas of his radio 2 days before his death that Jean-Pierre Amugo Bellinger was planning to take his life.
Well, this is to reinforce the suspicion on the latter in case this was to happen. He had never imagined that he gave himself up on his own. In reality, he had just finished doing the job and, in fact, was more useful dead than alive because everything was in place to blame Amugo Bellinger for a planned murder. Remember, this is not what we are saying. This is from a Special Units Commando.
Now, Special Units Commando goes on to say in his analogy that is it possible that Amugo Bellinger ordered the murder of Martinez knowing that he was going to be the first suspect? Very impossible, because murderers are generally smarter and choose to wait for the right moment when everyone is forgotten. We wanted to put the heart on Amugo Bellinger. The cases of Jacques Blaise Mvei, Dieudonné Mveng, CEO of Info TV, and Christophe Bobion-Kono, miraculously injured in a traffic accident, are also the handiwork of the octopus. They have probably made a deal and know too much. Now, this right here is the analogy and the explanation, the rhetoric of this commando. We'll move on with the rest of the story. All right, on to this important news here. Lawyers are bent on seeing the hammer of the law fall on Chief Ewome Eko John, also known as Moja Moda. Well, a lot of persons are guilty of crimes against humanity within the context of the ongoing conflict in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, though institutionally La République du Cameroon takes responsibility for all the atrocities in the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Some overzealous La République du Cameroon officials have scores to settle before the law court for their actions.
Well, one such person is the ruler of Boassa village chief, Ewume Eko John, also known as Moja Moja. Now, he is guilty of torturing and killing Ambazonian youth. Nobody is above the law, though in a lawless country like La Republic de Cameroon, the guilties are always freed while the poor and innocent ones are in prison. Will La Republic de Cameroon colonial courts allow the law to take its course on Moja Moja is a question we are trying to find an answer to.
Well, the case filed against Chief Ewume Eko John alias Moja Moja of Bossa Village has been transferred from the Colonial Secretary of State for National Defense in Yaoundé to the Boya Military Court. A group of lawyers has filed a complaint at the Colonial Secretary of State for National Defense against Chief Ewume Eko John alias Moja Moja for torture and other atrocities against civilians.
Well, one of the lawyers pursuing the case against Moja Moja barrister Nico Amungwa Tai made the statement captured on the Post newspaper. He equally stated that as lawyers, they firmly stand for the enforcement of the rule of law and against institutionalized crimes being perpetrated and going around freely by persons who are supposed to protect their citizens. Barrister Amungwa is also the communication and media chairman for the defense team of Sisiku Ayuk Tabi and other Anglophones detainees.
Now, Moja Moja in many videos had tortured and dehumanized many young Amazonians, and some have died after being tortured by him. He was tagged he has tagged victims of Amazonia liberation fighters. Moja Moja is an element of the La Republic de Cameroon elite for BIR and chief of Bossa village in Boya Fako County, unfortunately.
All right, moving on. Firepower puts down 2 in Bamenda local government area. Now, reports reaching Undaunted this morning says 2 soldiers, elements of the colonial La Republic de Cameroon enemy forces, have just been shot in Bamenda local government area by Ambazonian freedom fighters. Undaunted gathers that the 2 elements belonging to a colonial La Republic de Cameroon military detachment, abbreviated in the enemy language, Bafusco, only paid the high price of the pride of President Paul Biya in Bamenda local government area, just like 1,000 of their comrades killed by Ambazonian freedom fighters since 2017.
Now, a few days ago, the CPDM crime syndicate government of Yaoundé, through the press release of its colonial minister of communication, claimed not to be concerned with the ongoing negotiations in Canada with some group of Ambazonians.
Well, the CPDM junta is recalcitrant because it's other people's children dying while their own are educated in American and European universities. Well, number of soldiers killed since the beginning of the war is 1,417. Well, this is courtesy of Nzuo Mancho, and of course, it's edited for Undaunted TV.
And now, interestingly, we look at the French hegemony in Africa. On Monday, Burkina Faso said it had decided to end a military accord that allowed French troops to fight insurgents on its territory because the government wants the country to defend itself. A notice from the Burkinabe government got to France after termination of the 2018 agreement on the status of French armed forces present in the country. According to the terms of the accord, the termination takes effect a month after reception of written notification, and France has agreed to respect the terms of the agreement by honoring this request.
About 400 French special forces are currently based in Burkina Faso in a deployment dubbed Zebra, part of a border military presence to fight jihadists across the Sahel region. But the country has followed a similar course to neighboring Mali, falling out with Paris after a military coup brought a junta to power, and the French presence became increasingly unpopular among the public.
Now, the Burkinabe government has assured Paris it will not follow Mali by turning to Russia's Wagner to back up its army, although a liaison team from the mercenary group has already visited. A source familiar with French military plans said that while the troops would be gone by the end of February, their equipment would be picked up by late April. This is the part that sounds a little shady, but they must surely have the reason.
Well, Paris asked for clarification from Ouagadougou's transitional president Ibrahim Traoré on Monday after the government had said it was asking French forces to leave. To clarify things, following the announcement, government spokesman Jean-Emmanuel Ouedraogo said, and I quote, "This does not mean the end of diplomatic relations between Burkina Faso and France."
All right, in addition, the government has requested that Paris replace its ambassador after incumbent Luc Halad commented publicly on the worsening security situation in the country. The landlocked state, a former French colony, is one of the poorest and most volatile in Africa. Thousands of troops, police, and civilians have been killed, and about 2 million people have fled their homes since jihadists launched an insurgency from neighboring Mali in 2015. More than a third of the country lies beyond the control of the government, and frustration within the army at the mountain toll triggered two coups last year.
Well, the common thing to wonder is what promoted this action from Burkinabé authorities, partly linked to perceptions that France has not done enough to tackle the Islamist militancy that has spread in recent years from neighboring Mali. Glacier believed that the young people were calling for the withdrawal of the French soldiers on a politically nationalist basis. And when an analyst on the Sahel, Amba, was asked if the Burkinabé authorities' dismissal of Operation Cyber is directly related to Kremlin and the possible use of Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group, he said, "No, I don't think so. The reason is the poor results in the fight against terrorism despite the presence of Sabres on Burkinabé territory," which is quite a logical thing coming from the angle of you having the presence of Sabra with their impact not being felt. Well, if you ask me, it's quite pointless.
Well, in these pictures, people who gathered to show their support to Burkina Faso's new military leader Ibrahim Traoré in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso last week, Wednesday. You see the placards that read, "The French army disengaged from us. No to France, thief of Africa. No to the accomplices of France." On these placards, you see read cacophony, ECOWAS, a French institution, and respect the people's choices, amongst many others. In most recent cases, rather, counting down from Mali and other scenarios, the French hegemony in Africa has not been exactly to better the people's life, but more about continued exploitation, having a military in a country, yet it does no good against the insurgencies it was brought in for. Well, I guess Mali and Burkina Faso see no point in that, really. Well, we'll be interested in getting to know what else happens when they get their weapons from Burkina Faso in April, as they said.
All right, and away from the African scene, let's get to the foreign scene. Biden claims no regret, but classified papers case could come back to bite him, while others are major differences between the president and Trump cases. The controversy arrives at a delicate time for Biden. At the invitation of Joe Biden's legal team, federal investigators carried out an extraordinary 13-hour search of the president's Delaware's residence, scoring every room of the home, from the bedrooms to the bathrooms. It was a remarkable gesture meant to demonstrate the president's full cooperation with their investigation, but it also led to the discovery of half a dozen items with classified markings, the latest in a series of findings that have put Biden and his presidency on the defensive as he prepares to seek a second term.
Now, the disclosures have already led the Justice Department to appoint a special counsel to investigate Biden's retention of classified documents. They have also emboldened a hostile Republican House majority eager to wield its newly acquired subpoena power and alarm some Democrats who just weeks ago were praising Biden's political strength following their unexpectedly strong midterm performance. While Biden should be embarrassed by the situation, the Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, the second-ranking Democrat in the Senate, said during a Sunday appearance on CNN.
Senator Tim Kaine, a Democrat of Virginia, also weighed in on CBS Face the Nation, asking, "How many documents are we talking about? Dozens? A handful, or hundreds? How serious are they? Why were they taken? Did anyone have access to them? And then, is the president being cooperative?" Biden and his team have repeatedly stated that they are cooperating fully with authorities, a strategy the White House said was underscored by the unprecedented offer to search a sitting president's home. But the slow trickle of revelations and the White House piecemeal public disclosures have only further intensified the political furor surrounding the matter. Dogged by questions at every appearance, Biden has occasionally flashed impatience. "I think you're going to find there is nothing there," he told reporters, adding, there is none."
Well, the remark drew a rebuke from Senator Joe Manchin, a West Virginia Democrat who is not shy about criticizing the White House. In a separate interview, Manchin took issues with Biden's statement that he has no regret about the decision not to inform the public about the initial discovery of documents in November. Quote, he says, "I think he should have a lot of regret."
Well, despite their dismay, the Democrats also defended the president's cooperative approach and contrasted it with Donald Trump. He's also facing a special counsel for his mishandling of government documents. Well, of course, we'll keep bringing you updates on this Biden classified document report as it unfolds.
All right, back to stories as concerns Amazonia. When it comes to leadership, everyone thinks it is easy. Everyone talks as much as they want. After all, they say talk is cheap. Chris Anuwal tried to criticize Dr. Sacco, made lots of statements, a whole lot of statements, he said.
Yes, and one of the statements is the one that we are going to take right now. He says, "I have billionaire friends who are ready to sponsor the war if there is the right leadership." Now, someone said, "Mr. Chris, you are now the leader of your interim government group. Where are they?" That's where are the billionaires? Regrettable, you are now asking Ambazonians to contribute $10,000, $50,000, and so on, with the very few Ambazonians behind you. How much can you raise to sponsor the war, Pastor Chris? And very regrettable. Now, this is Kotsi Sama Thomas, but reposted by Butabu Kwifo. All right, we have that particular post there, and we would also show you that particular post. All right, and right after this break, we would bring you the editorial. We are going to be looking at Diplomacy Masterclass Part 3. And Star Smart would definitely bring you that part of the editorial art after this break.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
sports, former Premier League referee Mark Clattenburg has resigned from his position as president of the Egyptian Referees Committee as only 5 months in charge. Why did he resign? Gab Ellison has more to this.
separate. Hmm? What's going on? It's my HOD. So I can do that. Because scatter news, na na na. So it's me that can play music. No, it's me that can play music.
All right, and with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's take a recap of the major stories.
Tonight, we brought to you a 15-year Amazonian who died after consuming herbs from La Republic to Cameroon's military. Now, trade union condemned the murder of Martinez Zogo. A letter from Diane Zogo, wife of Martinez Zogo, journalist murdered in Cameroon.
All right, also today we brought to you FAPA as it puts down to Inbamendo local government heirs. Lawyers are bent on seeing the hammer of the law fall on Chief Ewume Ekojon, also known as Moja Moja. Today we told you from the foreign scene that Biden has claimed that he has no regrets about the classified paper case. But we know that it could come back to bite him. All right, and that was it for tonight on Undaunted, bringing to the news on Touch Stories. On behalf of my co-anchor, Stashmat, and the entire Undaunted crew, we say thank you for tuning in. I am Onyi Obala.
And I am Star Smart. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.